Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
Well, some of y'all look real nice. The others, I need to go home and get some work. Y'all not used to this early morning stuff, I can tell. Hey, thank all of you for being here. And I'm going to tell you that looking at the legislators and what these folks up here have to go through, and I say it every couple of years when I get up here, it's amazing to see what they do when they're off work. And when I say work, what they do at the Capitol is a ton of work. And I want to say thank you to all of you for what you're doing. Let's give them a round of applause. This is a partnership between the three chambers in Saline County, Hot Springs Village and Bryant. I think y'all are all here, right? See you in the back. Jason, thank you for being here. This is good. I see you there. Thank you. Hey, good start. And I want to tell you what is neat about this is looking out here and seeing the community, how many people here really care about what is happening locally, plus at the national level. So thank you for caring about what's going on. If you get up at 6 and 5 in the morning to get here by 7 o'clock, you definitely care. So you definitely care about all this. Right now, I'm going to ask our Attorney General to come up here and Tim Griffin and give us a blessing and bless our state and our food that we have.
I turned my card down there because this is a legislative breakfast. They control my budget. I am not a legislator. And this is not a breakfast for me. So I want to make that very clear. I know it's their show. So we're just going to go to the Lord in prayer. Keep our hands. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here together to fellowship. Thank you for putting in people's hearts a desire to make a better country and to improve things and do your will here on earth. Thank you, Lord, for giving us the opportunity to live in a country where we can be free to worship, free to pursue our dreams, free to raise a family, Lord. I ask that you just guide us each and every day. Guide our legislators, guide our community leaders, guide us all. We are all equal at the foot of the cross, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for sending your son Jesus to die on the cross to pay for our sins. You know that we need it. We know that we need it. Lord, we thank you for this food. We thank you for everything that you give us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, Farm Bureau, Ken, where you at? Ken Davis? Back, is there a group from all of y'all back there in the corner?
We got some county board members here, and we have an agent, Blake Mark, over there on that side with some visitors.
Yep. So anything you need, just come see y'all. Thank you for this breakfast. I'm going to tell you, thank you. We're going to have 3 or 4 more meetings. The last Friday of this month, I need to look it up because I'll forget it. Everybody know what that date is? I'm looking, I should have it. How about February 24th? We're going to do another one of these. So if you want to sponsor that one, all you got to do is contact the Bryant Chamber, Hot Springs Village Chamber, or the Benton Chamber. If you want to sponsor it, you need to get a hold of us pretty quick because somebody's going to call and we're going to fill it up. But we need somebody to reach out and say we're going to help feed everybody here. You get to put a banner up, and so there's a lot you can get out of this. So please help us. We're gonna get started here pretty quick. And Rick Bellinger's in the back. I want to say, Rick, thank you for what you're doing. I think you're out making breakfast somewhere every day, and thank you for helping this community out. Now we're not going to spend a lot of time. Usually we give these guys, 5 minutes. We're probably going to take 3 or 4 minutes because we want to get some questions in at the end. So let's start somewhere. Ken, what do you think? Anybody want to start off? Got to get the new person. We're going to hear all the normal stuff. He's going to say it, so get ready. All right, just tell them who you are and what you're doing. Maybe some of the things you're doing up at the Capitol. Trying to find a parking place.
I'm the newest guy on the panel, I guess. R.J. Hawk, District 81. It's the newest district in Saline County, covering Bryant, Alexander, and Shannon Hills, and the front half of Hurricane Lake Estates. And trying to find bathrooms right now at the Capitol. That's what I'm doing. That's the old adage. I think Lanny Fite, the very first day I got in, he said, "You know what? It's like drinking out of a fire hose." I said, "No, it's more like putting your mouth up to the hydrant and just turning it on and saying, let's do this thing." I'm really honored that the voters allowed me to get in because, one thing that I made a promise when we were campaigning was to eliminate the used car sales tax. And so I've worked diligently here the first 4 weeks to do that. We've actually got a bill in place to start bringing that down or eliminating it altogether. We're working through all the details on that. It'll go to committee here in a few weeks. And so outside of that, another big bill that I've worked on, it's gotten some national headlines, is Bentley's Law. And what that's going to do is it's a DUI bill that if somebody's under the influence of alcohol or drugs while they're driving or boating and they kill a parent, when they get out of jail, whether they serve a 5 to 10 year prison sentence, whenever they get out, they will pay child support for any child left behind. And so that's a bill that it passed in Tennessee last session, and if it passes this one, Arkansas will be the second state in the country to pass that bill. So I'm really proud about that and working to get that thing done.
My name is Keith Brooks. I represent District 78. District 78 is a little bit newly created, not newly created, but a little bit of a change as well. Part of my district, the Bryant part primarily was taken off to represent Hawks' new district. So I cover District 78, and the Saline County portion of that is Avila, Lake Norrell, Ferndale area, a little bit of Salem, those kind of Zuber Road areas where the border of it is, and then I cover into Pulaski County, Chenal, northwestern Pulaski County as well. So I serve, it's my second term. I serve on Aging Children and Youth, Legislative, Military and Veterans Affairs, and then I serve as the Vice Chair of House Education Committee. So the sessions kind of started off a little bit slower, I think, than the last one. Everybody's commenting on that a little bit, just not as big of a volume of legislation we've seen so far. However, it's really starting to pick up, and so the things that I've primarily been working on have been working on with Governor Sanders and her education package. That's something that she has clearly defined as her top priority. I think it's not lost on any of us that we can do better for our teachers, we can do better for our students and families in the state of Arkansas. So we're working very closely with her and her team, as well as our other legislative partners in the Senate, to work on that and just have some really exciting things that I'm really glad we'll be able to roll out here very soon, in how we're going to serve students, and how we're going to really take on the needs that we have in our education system in the state of Arkansas, K through 12, as well as higher education. So I look forward to serving any way I can. I always want to give out, I learned this from the Attorney General, I want to make sure everybody has contact information. So if you want to write this down, other folks may do this later on, but my cell phone is 501-744-6080. So 501-744-6080. Always glad to serve whatever needs that we have here in Saline County, and honored to represent you.
Okay. Good morning, I'm Lanny Fite. I'm District 83. I go and I butt up against these two guys to the east and go all the way to the county line, Hot Springs Village, Owensville, and Lonsdale, and down through there. I chair City County Local in the House. Also, I'm on Rules, and also I lost my mind and got on Education. Yeah. Right now I'm working on some bills. One of them that I'm working on is, I put it forward early in the session, is to increase the homestead credit from $375 to $425. Governor Sanders is for that. She asked me to give them a little bit of time to review it, and but she supports that. So we'll be putting that forward here in the next few weeks, I'm sure. Also we have, I've got a couple of ones. Everybody I think is familiar with Highway 5 and this project that has gone on forever. Senator Hammer and I have worked on that, trying to move that project along. I've got legislation that will solve that problem the next time. It doesn't help us now, but it will help it. It has to do with the right-of-way, who's in charge of the project of moving the utilities. I think it'll be a very good bill. There are, one time there was nearly 20 projects across the state were held up because of utilities in the right of way being relocated. Also, I've got the waste tire bill to privatize it. Let me tell you what, it has always been an issue since 1991 with the government running it, and my goal is to put it back in the private sector. Also, probably the biggest bill I have this time is net metering. There's a cost shift that if you have solar, you're able to sell back to the grid at retail price. Well, you get enough people doing that, and there's a cost shift goes against people who do not have solar, and it drives up their bill. This will bring fairness back to it. And I have several other small bills, but that's the main thing. And I'll hand it over to my colleague here.
Good morning, I'm Rick McClure, District 29, and with the redistricting, I now have the wonderful cities of Haskell, Traskwood, and Shaw area. So I'm a little bit new to the Saline County area, although I know a lot of you in the room. And I don't know that this is a good time to tell you that I wound up on public transportation as a vice chair. And so we don't want any comments or questions about I-30 because I don't have any answers either, although I'm driving it every single day. And also served with Representative Keith on aging children, youth. There's a passion there to help our kids and children. As far as bills are being run, there's some things I think that we can do on voter integrity, that we can help a little bit in that area. I have a passion also for economic development, whether it's in our, Saline County is doing tremendous. You're a bright shining star here in the state. But a lot of our neighboring counties need a little bit of help. So we're going to be passionate about that. A lot of other little things that are going on. And I will just say this. I was making a list driving up here this morning. If I counted right, we have in Saline County 6 state representatives. 6 state representatives and 2 senators. Now, I want you to understand the power of that leverage that you have. Because not a lot of counties have 6 state representatives and 2 senators. And so we are well positioned to represent you very, very well with a loud voice if we all get us on the same page together. And I'm just looking forward to some good things to come. It's not been as controversial this time so far. Look forward to it's probably going to be. But I think we're going to do a lot of things this session that's going to be moving the state forward for not just a year or two, but for generations to come.
Good morning, I'm Kim Hammer, State Senator. I represent Saline County, West Pulaski County. Thanks for letting me be here this morning, and glad to answer any questions that you may have for all of us. First of all, I'd like to just make a note of something. Attorney General Griffin added this to his schedule kind of at the last minute. He did want to come and mix and mingle with you, but he did have an appointment that he had to scoot out to get to. So just wanted to extend that to you as far as his need to leave. And then also Representative Mayberry, Bentley, and Furman all sent their regrets, but because of previous obligations, they weren't able to be here, but they hope to be here at the next one. So I want to notify you of that. I serve on the committees of education, city, county, local, and then on budget, ALC, leg audit, and also chair of joint performance review, chair of Senate ethics. Some of the legislation that I'm working on this time include a PBM bill, working with the Insurance Commissioner's Office to try to continue to bring the PBMs in line as far as their reimbursement and how they conduct themselves with regards to your local pharmacies. Hopefully that'll be out sometime next week. Election package that we have been working on. We were rated by the Heritage Foundation number 6 in the nation as far as election integrity. We've worked with them to identify the other areas, and after the passage of the legislation that we have coming down the line, we hopefully will be ranked number 1 in the nation as far as election integrity and everything that goes along with your election process. Also, about to drop a bill that's going to streamline government a little bit. We had a pretty major shift last time with what's called transformation. There's been some thought processes since that time that maybe some areas would be better back under DFA, and hopefully that'll drop next week as well. Also working throughout the summer Representative Deanne Vaught had put together a mental health caucus, been through all those meetings during the summer and participating in helping improve access for those that need mental health needs. And so we're opening up. In fact, last week was able to get a bill through where it would insert providers at an earlier place, and we're removing some of the restrictions that give people greater access sooner rather than later. And so we're working on that. Hopefully that bill will drop next week as well. And then also, I'm on retirement and carrying several bills dealing with the various retirement programs. I was chair of retirement last time. I chose not to be chair, but I'm on the committee this time. And we've got a lot of legislation coming down that's not going to hurt the retirement systems. In fact, if anything, it's going to beef them up, make them stronger so that we can have them secure, because we all know what the last year has done. And I just want to say to this, that our retirement systems have come out of the storm, or in the middle of the storm, I still think we're in the storm, are coming out better than a lot of our counterparts in a lot of other parts of the nation. And so we have strong retirement systems. Yes, they're taking a beating, but who isn't? But we remain strong and able to meet our needs. But there's bills that are coming out to make sure that we remain strong. Thank you.
Thank you. I represent Eastern Garland County, most of Hot Spring County except for the western end, and northern Grant County, and then in Swain County, which you're most interested in, from south of Old Johnson Highway up just south of Perrin, and west of the North Fork of the Sling River, except for the village, in a boomerang shape, all the way down around Benton and Bryant, which Sen Hammer has, all the way out to East End. So we'll have a major part of the rural part of Sling County. I serve on the Judiciary, Transportation, and Children and Youth Committees. Some of the legislation that I'm working on is school choice. I know we have a major school choice bill coming that I'm anxious to see. It's always been important to me. But I'm working on a bill that's what I'm calling right to stay, that once a child is out of school, that they can stay there. A lot of times people move just down the road, think they're still in the same school district, and they're not. Sometimes they know they're not, but a child's a junior, would like to graduate at that school, a fifth grader would like to graduate from elementary school, etc. Whatever the reasons may be. Also, divorces happen, things happen with DCFS, all kinds of things, but just the ability for a child to stay once they're there. On taxes, a couple of little things. Work this out without legislation if possible, but county residents are paying, some county residents, I should say, that live close to the city are paying city sales tax on online purchases. Had lots of complaints about that. I've been experiencing it myself. And I didn't know if it could be fixed, but I found out in talking to DFA that your 9-digit zip code changes at the city limits. So there's absolutely no doubt that can be known whether you're in the city or outside the city. Also, sales tax being charged on used merchandise sold from consumer to consumer. When we passed the internet sales tax, that was not intended. If you're selling your old baby clothes, if you're selling it cash and they come pick it up, there's no sales tax. But if there's any delivery at all involved on eBay, Amazon, Facebook Marketplace, the sales tax gets charged. It may not be an easy fix, but we're working on that. Working on some child welfare bills, some law enforcement, and on the parking lot bill again. If you come to the Capitol, and lots of citizens do, and I'm glad that they do. If we opened up the Capitol today, we wouldn't be able to open it under zoning laws because we don't have enough parking for our customers. You know, we all have a parking place, but good chance that no matter what condition you're in, we have a couple of handicapped parking places, but you park 4 blocks away from the Capitol and walk up to the Capitol when we could have parking right there, and we should have parking right there. And appreciate y'all having us here this morning.
That was good. Now we need clap, right? Good time to clap. Wes and Bill Eldridge, can y'all come up here and grab one of these microphones? Here's what we're gonna do. If you got a question or you have a question, there's microphones if you want to talk into it. But if you have a question, ask whichever representative or senator you need to direct the question to, okay? So let's open it up and see if there's any questions. And there is one rule. You gotta be nice. You gotta be nice. This is gonna end real quick if there's no question. I knew there was a question. And who you want this directed to?
Let me tell you, I wanna direct it to all of you. There's a lot of folks in this, not just in this county, but in the state, that are pleasantly surprised at what's going on at the Capitol this session. I'm hearing a lot of cheering going on. I'm hearing people say, you know, they were a little suspicious in the past, and I said, you gotta get rid of your suspicions, and you gotta earn trust, and a lot of that trust comes from transparency. And this is one of those meetings that I think that basically shows that transparency. Now my question is directed to Representative Fite. You talked about the one bill there that says something about how you were gonna basically, I guess it sounded like you're gonna levelize the playing field for utilities and solar or any other alternative energy source. I'd like to know more about that program that you're proposing and the reasons why.
Okay. Okay. The state of Arkansas has the most liberal solar program in this nation, more liberal than California, New York, the cost shift right now, just for electric co-ops alone, this year was $8 million that shifted from solar people over onto the rest of the customers. By the year 2040, that will be $240 million that will be shifting. So that's just electric co-ops alone. That's not counting the energy, SWEPCO, and the others. So that cost shift is pretty drastic. And either you keep the grid up by increasing the cost, or your grid falls down. You know, and I don't know about you, but when electricity goes off my house, I think I'm living in a third world country. And there's a lot more to it, but that's the main reason. That cost shift is going to grow. The Public Service Commission ended the grandfathering clause in the end of last year. Before that, you're guaranteed that money for 20 years, and that cost shift goes for 20 years, but they ended the grandfathering. But every solar system that went into the state is guaranteed that 1-for-1 or that retail price that they can push back on the grid. We can't keep that up. It's too big a burden on people who don't have solar. And you can talk to your co-ops or your First Electric, your Entergy, whoever your supplier is, and they can help you walk you through it in more detail than we have this morning. Or you can call me and I will do that.
Good morning. Also a question regarding solar. I have solar on my house. Dozens of my neighbors have added solar. And as you start to make any changes to that, keep in mind that many of us bought solar with the rules in place the way they were, assuming that they would stay that way. So I'm very concerned about anything you do that devalues my investment, which was sizable, versus the savings for us when we get into the second year of it. But it's a green system. It's good really for everybody. There's a value for everyone, even if they don't have solar, for people to get on solar and get off of less green technology. I read the letter that the head of First Electric wrote. It mirrors your comments in many ways. So I just wanted to add that those of us that have bought into that system and spent a ton of money doing it we're real concerned about how you might change it.
And in the bill, we do honor the contracts prior to December 31st of 2022. So, and when the Public Service Commission did not extend grandfathering, then no one should have been offered a contract with grandfathering in it from that point forward. So if you have it now, your contract's all right. And most people, like when you got the solar, you probably never heard about the cost shift, had you?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. Most people who get it, they don't know. And don't get me wrong, solar has a place in our power system, but about half the people in the state, a little over half the people in the state, own their homes. The other, they don't even qualify. And then a large percentage of that who do own their homes, they don't qualify. So they don't have the ability to even get solar, and so the cost is shifted over to them.
To follow up on his question, I saw the same thing happen with Southwestern Bell. I saw the same thing happen with Southwestern Bell, and it has a lot to do with the stranded cost associated with lines, telephone lines and stuff like that, and the technology actually started changing. And that was kind of, after he said that, that was kind of what I was kind of alluding to, and the reason I asked the question is that we're going to have to look at the stranded cost of the utilities. That's why Southwestern Bell is no longer really here. Now you have an AT&T bill, and everybody got rid of their landlines and started going to cellular. Well, the same thing is happening here that I see, that you have a solar technology and technology, whatever, that the technology shift, should it really be a burden upon the citizens that decide to go to that, or would there be programs that would allow for somebody to get solar or to get that credit until that technology went over? That's just some of the ideas that I got to think about, because I saw the same thing happen with Southwestern Bell.
Here's one back here, I think, right?
It's me now? Yes, I do have a question.
You can't sing.
I won't sing, I promise. So you can probably keep the microphone, Lanny Fite. But I am not a teacher, and I do not have kids in school right now. But I do have a lot of friends who are teachers, and they asked me, since they are in school today, could they ask about, are they going to get a raise?
Yes, they're going to get a raise. How much, we don't know. It's in the governor's package. Her package, from what I understand, and Representative Brooks may be able to answer this question a little better than I can. But yes, they're going to get a raise. I'll defer to him.
Thank you. You really were doing the lion's share of the work up here, so I think we were all appreciative of that. So thank you for the question, and obviously the governor has been very clear about what her education package is. She bases off of what she called, and she campaigned on this, her Arkansas Learns initiative, which was focusing on literacy, parental empowerment, accountability, readiness, networking, and safety. And so the package really mirrors that, but as just to directly answer that question, as a part of the package, there is definitely teacher raises. I think it's something that everybody's going to be very happy with, very aggressive, because again, our goal is to honor the work that our teachers do, and to recognize that one of the hardest jobs that anyone can have is standing in a room for 8 hours a day and in helping mold the minds of K through 12 students or even above that. And so we want to make sure that we honor that. So yes, there is a teacher raise in that package, and I think everybody's going to be very, very pleased with it.
This is a follow-up. This is for Senator Hammer and Representative McClure. Senator McClure talked about voter integrity. Senator Hammer, you talked about election integrity. Are those bills in place yet, or have they been written? Because we have a lot of people, from the county perspective, we got people pinging on us for something. It'd be nice to know what the state's gonna do before the county takes any action.
I'll take the first run at it, then Representative McClure can straighten me out if I get off track. The bills that I'm working on, that I'm aware of, have all been and are being vetted with the Secretary of State, with the Association of Counties, and with the Election Commission, so as to make sure that they, are all together. We've worked out any tweaks, all with the goal of moving toward making sure that anything we've recognized in the past that needs to be adjusted, but also preemptive, so that if there are things that have happened that are substantiated in other states, keyword substantiated in other states, that we're out ahead of them. And the goal again is to get us to where we can claim the title of the number one most secure. I will tell you there's some currents out there as far as going back to paper ballots. That is being looked at, but I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. I prefer that it be left at the county level to make a decision, so that the county has that official choice as to what to do. If you look at Arkansas and what we experienced last time, there were some issues with absentee ballots. We have done things, are doing things that will secure and tighten that up just a little bit. And also, we had some problems, not in Saline County, where there were some questions about the handling of the ballots, the security of them, or the chain of accountability, and we're addressing that, so that if there are absentee ballots, we know exactly where they are in the chain of custody all along the way. And so those are some things. It's all based on past experience, things we need to tweak, preemptive on things that have been legally substantiated. I will throw this in too. Attorney General Griffin had to leave for another meeting, but also one of the bills, and I'm going to let Rick talk about it because I think he's involved in it, about the relationship between the Attorney General office.
The Attorney General's office?
You don't know your names on that bill? There you go. So there would be, when it comes to handling or investigating claims of voter fraud or anything along that line, there will be a working relationship between the Attorney General, who would have prosecuting authority over, say, a local prosecutor, because sometimes what happens is, not in our case, but in other cases, local prosecutors are sometimes afraid to touch election issues, or when they come to comparing it between robbery, murder, rape, that it falls low on their priority list. We want to make it a priority, and so we're including bringing the Attorney General in, that if there's a question of election integrity or fraud activity that has been determined between the State Election Commission, which is headed up by Daniel Schultz, and the AG, that they would cooperate in the investigation and the prosecution, so as to make sure that everything is treated at a higher level.
You did such a great job. I want to correct something I said a little bit earlier that Representative Fite corrected me on. I said Saline County had 6 representatives. We have 7. We had 7. Somehow I left Keith's name off of my list over here. We have 7. So one of the things that I'm laser focused on was an issue we dealt with down in Hot Spring County. And on this last session, I sat on a committee that we saw a lot of audits of city, county, local. We see a lot of things come through there. One of the things I realized, especially the smaller counties, is how overworked different offices are, including the county clerk's office. And Hot Spring County had a wet-dry ballot that was going on. And some of the business leaders were doing the sign-ups to get the ballot initiative on. And they found some irregularities, not to anyone's fault, but there was just some irregularities of people had moved and the data hadn't caught up, people that had passed away, the data hadn't caught up. So what I want to do is make sure that when I am no longer on this earth, none of you are going to vote for me. I might mail in a ballot. I'm just teasing. But that we do that from the state level and help the county clerks. And again, like Senator Hammer said, that'll be done with all the agencies working together. So we're not trying to pitting anyone together. It's using the current technology and availability to make sure those roles, by the time we get to the county clerk's office, will be as clean and as up to date as possible. Did I say that correctly, sir? Okay.
Is this on? Okay. There's an issue with elections that I had not followed the bill this time. I followed it 2 years ago. It made it through Senate committee, through the Senate floor, and House committee, failed on the House floor. And currently, you can put up campaign signs at most polling places, but not all. No way of really knowing which ones you can't until you go back and they're down. Some polling places think that you can't electioneer, which means people stand out there and wave signs and ask for people to vote for the candidate. You can. Most polling places you can gather petitions because we have in this state ways that you can get laws on the ballot, etc., by getting signatures, and there's no better time than election day at polling places. Some polling places don't allow that. And there's no way to know who does and who doesn't, nor does it make sense that it's not uniform. And the argument that's used on the other side is it's up to the property owner. No, not a polling place on election day is not up to the property owner. And if it were up to the property owner, you can say, well, we're going to allow Republican signs and not Democrat signs, or Democrat signs and not Republican signs. That's just crazy. Other states have addressed that. We need to address that. Our constitutional lawyers on election day always say, no, they can't do that, but we need to put it into law.
Good morning. My name is Zeke Brinsfield, and I've got 3 questions. I'd like to start with education at first, and specifically to you, Senator Hammer, and Representative Fite. You both serve on the education board. Our education system needs some massive overhaul, and I don't think any of us would disagree with that. We have children that are part of homeschool co-ops, they're part of private schools, and there's funding that's associated to every child that goes straight to the district. And would you be willing to consider legislation put forth that funding would be able to be associated to the child, and they could follow the child for their curriculum regardless if they're homeschooling, or if they are part of a homeschool co-op, or if they're part of a private school that does not receive that funding today?
We will see what's in the governor's package. I know that subject is in the governor's package. Need to wait and see what comes out of it. The one thing I would say, and I've heard this comment from people that are homeschoolers, people that go to private schools, heard it from the public schools, and that is, it's a matter of the accountability. As long as the accountability is there, I think it has a greater chance to get through, because we don't want, and the worst case scenario is that, and I'm going to use the illustration, you got a family of 4, and we just give them a check for each one of those kids equivalent to what the school district is getting, and then the question is the quality of the education that they're getting. I do think that there is room for the discussion. It's going to be based on the expectations that are placed on them as far as the outcome that we have also on the public school. So it is in their package. I can't tell you what form, and as far, and Keith can maybe, because he's going to be carrying, I would expect that package to be out maybe sometime next week, the week after, because it still has to go through the review process by the Bureau that drafts the legislation. So looking at it, yes, but before I make a 100% commitment, I want to see what the details are. I want to know what the accountability is. And I will say this, we're blessed in Saline County that we've got the 4 schools that we got. We're blessed that we've got a couple great private schools. We're blessed that we've got some people that do a great job homeschooling. There's greatness all around Saline County. But also remember this, it's not great everywhere else. And that may be the best solution in some other places where they have not put the focus on education like we have had it here in Saline County. So the decisions that we make, we've got to take into consideration that while we sit here blessed, there are other parts of the state that are not, because the people aren't as motivated with their children's education like people are in Saline County. So when we make a decision as legislators, we've got to look at it across the board, because we want the entire state brought up. It's kind of like they say, you want all ships rising with the same tide. And if we got to push and poke here in order to get over there, then that's what we're going to have to do. Bottom line, in my opinion, is that's fine. Let's just make sure that the accountability standards are equal across the board. Throwing in on top of that, you got to remember that some people have kids that have special needs, and the public schools right now are underfunded in being able to take care of the special needs of kids that are in their classrooms. We also have to take in consideration that we want to make sure that all kids, all students with all needs are taken across the board. And so it's a big discussion. To your question, it's definitely on the table. It is definitely in consideration. Personally speaking for myself, I just want to make sure that what's done for one child is done for every child, no matter where they're getting their education. See? Or not?
Hello, there we go. And you said you had a couple more questions, so don't want to monopolize the one question. I'll just follow up on what Senator Hammer said, which is a couple weeks ago, the governor participated in a rally around School Choice Week, and one of her commitments was that we would find a way for funding to follow student non-systems. And that means a lot of things in a lot of different places, and I certainly will echo what Senator Hammer said, that here in Saline County, our schools are outstanding. They're robust. Our students are blessed in a number of different ways. So we want to continue to lift up the places that are doing it as an example for everybody else, and we want to make sure that we're providing opportunity for everywhere else that may need a little bit of help. So, but I'll let you jump on to other questions.
Actually, I'd like to hear from Representative Fite also.
Yes, and again, until the governor's bill comes out, it's hard to say teachers' raises, how much they're going to be. I've not heard what she's offering as far as homeschooling and private schools and so on and so forth like that. And at this point, for me to comment on something that's not out there, I can't comment on it, But hopefully it'll be out in the next couple of weeks, and we can start to work on it. And we'll be having these meetings in the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll have something to talk about at that point.
I do appreciate the kind words that you share for our school district here. And I've got several friends that serve as teachers in our school district, and they are wonderful. And I have conversations with them continually about their faith being challenged continually, for them to be able to be who it is that they're called to be in the classroom. And I know the product that a week and a half had on my child whenever we had to pull him from the school after the first grade, because in the first 10 days of him being in school, he came home with a new vocabulary. He came home with racist slurs in his mouth, and he came home with playing games where they would hit children in their private spots. Okay, and so these are things that at the first grade level I experienced personally as a parent. Now, some people may not think that's a big deal, but I'm training a child in the way that he should go. And I want to make sure that those things are being, those avenues are being opened up for our teachers to be able to be bold in who it is that they're called to be as well. And so I would just encourage that. I don't think it's as rosy as we believe that it is, or that we want to see. I'm speaking from firsthand experiences of what choices we had to make with our child. And we are better for that choice and that decision. And so I just want to encourage us to examine this closer. My second, go ahead, Senator.
I do want to say that in the bill, there's a portion, as I've heard, about empowering parents. And to the issues that you just addressed, that there would be an avenue to address that, specifically when it comes down to areas of curriculum and Now, the standards are set by the state, that's no whole nother discussion, and then the district allows for the choice of materials or instructional materials that are gonna be used in the class. There is in the bill, as I understand it, okay, but I can't tell you everything about it. I just know that is a key point of discussion in the education package coming out to address exactly what you just talked about, which would be through the form of parent empowerment to be able to make sure that what's going on in the classroom would address what you're talking about.
You do realize that we've not been allowed to be in the classroom in the last couple of years?
Yes, everybody has not been allowed.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
and this is a real problem. This has to change for us to be able to have the responsibility and walk in the authority that we've been given concerning these matters. This has to open back up for us.
I think you're gonna find in this bill that there'll be an opening up. But at the same time, I would also say this, as long as everything's done respectfully, and I understand what you're saying as far as what you don't, and the word floating around out there is indoctrination. The fear of kids being indoctrinated or being subjected to an environment that doesn't rise to the highest level and the highest standards. I would agree with you that the one thing we want to make sure is that the concerns that you have expressed this morning can be addressed in a manner to where we can make sure that that is not an ongoing event.
Thank you. Can I have another question? Yeah. All right. So we've all went through the last 3 years of not as bad as the rest of the country, but we've had our own share of lockdowns. We had requests that churches not meet, that they close the doors, and pastors caved in to that and decided to not meet. We went against what God said and forsaking the assembly. We chose to do that instead of the opposite of not forsaking the assembly. There was legislation that was being presented this past on past elections that we had for us to have a freedom of religion bill that was there. And as you read through the bill, it increases the authority and the abilities of the government to be able to actually have more control over the church. And so I'm very concerned with many Republicans that thought this was a good idea. And it was a Republican-sponsored bill as well. And I'm thankful for the atheists in the state of Arkansas that voted against it. And it's a shame that we should have to look to atheists to establish the freedoms that have been given by God to us. So I just want to understand how we think giving more control to our government concerning our religious freedoms is a good idea here in the state of Arkansas.
I think that the bill that you're referencing has had a lot of miscommunication, misinterpretation, application, because the bill does not, in my opinion, do exactly what you say. Previous session, I passed a bill that gives the legislature the authority that if there's a public health emergency declared, that we as a legislature could assemble in order to vote to terminate that. And we actually utilized that power on one occasion. And that's what a whole lot of that built around was, that the message, and if y'all don't know, I pastor a church. I voluntarily shut down for a couple weeks, not because I felt compelled by the government to do it, but because I thought it was the wisest choice, and I consulted with my church staff and deacons, and they agreed it was the best thing for us to do at the time. And we did, but it wasn't because I felt compelled or threatened by the government to do it. I would respectfully say that I think that your interpretation of the bill is not 100% accurate, that it doesn't give greater power to the government to do it. In fact, I think it does exactly the opposite. It gives us greater power to prevent it from happening. Couple it with the bill that was passed the previous session before, that we can step in and say, no governor, no federal government, we're not. And that power rests with us as the legislature. If my memory serves me correct, during the COVID crisis, we actually did that on one occasion to flex our muscle, because we listened to what the people had say, and what the people said at that time was, don't do that, so we didn't. But it may be agreed to disagree, but my interpretation of the bill is different than yours.
The Constitution And God gives us that right. Not legislators, gives us that right. Every one of us that right. And this is a place that the word nice that we talked about, the etymology of that comes from the Latin word nisi, which means ignorant. And I understand being kind, but we need to quit being nice about some of these things. We need to be direct and pointed about it. And I just want to encourage you to consider the laws of God that have been governing our nation. Consider that in every decision that's being made. That our rights come from above. They don't come from man. They don't come from pieces of paper that are written on. They come from above. And that's the foundation of our nation. And when we start having to write additional laws to guarantee those things, then we are fracturing the foundation that this country's been built on.
Okay, is that it?
I know.
Anybody else have a question? Okay.
Thank you, Wes. Well, we've sort of camped out on education, and I did have a question because I know federally they've declared it's not going to be a pandemic anymore, and statewide they've declared that. And so under education, I was thinking about all the kids that got free meals while they were in school. And I know that I said earlier, I'm not a teacher. My kids are not still in school, but I know that my ex-husband taught for a little while, and he found that the kids that he taught in Little Rock would actually listen to him if he brought snacks, because a lot of them hadn't eaten. So I don't know, this is probably a short answer, because I don't know if there's any legislation on it currently, but I would like you to think about it if it is not something you're already thinking about. Will those kids continue to be charged for lunch, or is that something that the schools are able to provide?
In conversations with the superintendents around the state, one of the things that I've heard is that there are a lot of kids who, that if their parents would just fill out the form, the ability to get the free lunch is there. It's neglect on the part of the parents to fill out the form in order to make sure that that can be reimbursed. During the pandemic, and somebody else can straighten me out, wouldn't be the first time I'd be wrong, but during the pandemic, that was kind of waived where all students would be able to get the free meal. There are parents, unfortunately, we're living in a time unlike or back to the 80s when we were dealing with the rate of inflation that we're dealing with that does not seem to be getting addressed. But even those that normally would pay for their meal and could financially afford to pay for their meal have got accustomed to getting the free meal. So I'll take you down to a couple things. One, you got to get the kids and their parents in school that can fill out the form in order to get the free and reduced meal, because I know our local schools are eating quite a bit. I don't want to say which one, but I think 26,000, I may be off on that, are eating that cost. That cost could be greatly minimized if the parents whose kids qualify for free and reduced lunch would get the form filled out. That would take care of one problem. The other side of it is parents that can't afford to pay for their kids' lunch but have got accustomed to the free lunches being provided now need to re-engage in doing what they were doing before, and that is to pay for those lunches, because that is a direct cost passed on to the schools that the schools were not bearing before. The discussion of, and all this is my opinion and my fellow legislators may differ with me, the idea of picking up the entire food cost is on the table for discussion, looking at it, but I think we're going to have to address those two things first, because on top of that, you've got schools that have been mandated to build safe rooms that have just blown their budgets out of the water. You got on top of that schools that have contracts to build buildings because they're required to meet certain requirements, and the building costs are now, I think, around $330 a foot, $315, $305. They budgeted in, well before that. So we've got a lot of those financial needs that are placed on the schools that we've got to deal with. To your question about about the free meals, parents get that form, that'll take a little piece out of it. Parents that were accustomed to paying for those meals before that still can do that, need to start picking up the tab instead of expecting the schools to give them a free ride. That leaves us then with anything left over. It is on the table of discussion, but that's some insight as to what's going on with it.
think we have time for one more, maybe?
I think Al's got it.
Alan?
Yes. Is this on?
Yep.
There it goes. Let me go back on this whole education thing. Before any of us were in the legislature, the legislators had put Arkansas in the middle of the pack in teacher pay in the South. We had been very competitive for a long time until through the last session. We've never dropped back until with COVID and rapid inflation and other states doing some things, all of a sudden we find ourselves at the tail end. I don't think there's any chance that we stay there. I think we'll move back to where we were. It would be a shame if we do not. I will certainly be fighting that we do that. I think it will be in the school choice bill that everyone, including homeschool kids, should have access to computers, curriculum, etc. With accountability, there's no reason why that shouldn't be paid for. I would hope that's in the bill. But to the feeding kids, as a former youth pastor, every school, because there's schools that do that. There's schools who feed everybody breakfast, lunch, and they're not poor schools. And I commend them for that. On the other hand, how much are we going to, when are we going to quit taking responsibility from parents and giving it to the government? Because when you take responsibility away, you also take authority, as this gentleman spoke about a while ago. And while we mean well, this continual drive to put the government in charge of our kids is a mistake.
I've got one more question. Wrap it up.
This is Paul Bridges, Hot Spring Village. This is not education related, and I may go to Representative Fite. The most colorful bill right now seems to be this drag queen bill that we hear a lot about. And we hear on the extreme that there's really no substance there, it won't do anything constructive. We hear the other side that it will or will not protect the children. Is there a cliff notes on what this bill does, and is there value in what it's intended to do?
Okay, we heard the bill Wednesday in committee, and there was an amendment made on it, and it was made by the Attorney General. He made the recommendation that this amendment needed to be added on there to hold up in court. I think it eliminates the word drag queen, if I remember right. But it also puts in there, it's drag queen the way it identifies. So it passed along party lines in committee. It'll pass along party lines when it goes to the House. And it'll have to go back to the Senate now since there's been an amendment. But both the senator who sponsored it and also Representative Bentley on our end who sponsored it have agreed to this change in it to make sure that it does hold up and does what it's supposed to do. We got to see drag queens up the Capitol, there was a lot of them, I tell you this, if you've got an issue, I encourage you to show up at the Capitol or call your representative, whoever they may be, or senator,
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Well, I think to that point also, you asked, is it going to help or is it going to hurt? I think we saw in the news just the reason why this came about was because there was some drag queens that went into a public library and they started gyrating in front of kids. That's the whole reason this got brought about. And do we want that happening in Arkansas? Do we want that happening in our libraries or in our public spaces in Arkansas? And I think for most people in this room, the answer is no. And so this bill that Mary Bentley has put out, yes, it does protect our kids. It does. And while the title originally it had drag queen, and you've got people on the left or people that have friends that do that, they think, well, you're singling out a group of people. No, you're not. Because it's got that in the title. You're not singling out anybody. We're basically saying that we don't want these type of activities in front of our kids, and so we're going to outlaw it. We don't want our kids to be around that type of activity, And so if you do that, it's going to be frowned upon. You're going to be in a lot of trouble for doing it, and that's why the law has been in place.
Okay, thank you, RJ, thank you. I'll tell you, it's amazing to see, he's already jumped in and he's in the middle of all these issues. And I want to say thank you to all these folks up here, because what they do and what they have to answer, it's pretty hard. They do a lot of praying, a lot of reading, and thank you, every one of you, for what you're doing. Thank you so much. This is our first time to have our new county judge, Matt Brumley, up here on the front. Matt, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for running. Paul Bureau, thank you for this breakfast. Thank you so much for sponsoring it. And Rick Bellinger, I bet you have catfish today. I guarantee you can go by and eat some food there. Thank you for that. Jason, thank you, and Michael, wherever you're at. The Benton Chamber, Bryant Chamber, Hot Springs Village, it's amazing how we come together to put this on. It's pretty neat. Center Point Church, Pat, you're in the back. Thank y'all so much. This is a great venue, and thank you for letting us come in here. Y'all moved your whole congregation out and brought this. A lot of them said they're coming back Sunday, so that's a good thing.